where Ukrainian President Zelenskyy was a guest, and Donald Trump and J.D. Vance started yelling at Zelenskyy with Putin.
But you will feel it in the future. God bless.
You don't know that.
God bless. God bless. You will not have a war.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
European leaders on Sunday after he clashed with President Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance in an extraordinary shouting match on a visit to the Oval Office.
With World War III. You're gambling with World War III. And what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country.
Did Trump just sabotage U.S.-Ukraine relations with a single tantrum? The explosive Oval Office shouting match has diplomats worldwide stunned as Trump berated Zelenskyy, telling him, "You don't have the cards right now."
With us, you start having
not
cards.
playing cards.
Right now, you don't.
You're
playing cards.
Mr. President.
You're playing cards.
Serious.
You're gambling with the lives of
war.
millions of people.
Meanwhile, Putin's officials are calling Zelenskyy an insolent pig while praising Trump's restraint. Coincidence? I don't think so. This video breaks down exactly what happened when the cameras stopped rolling and why the scheduled press conference suddenly vanished. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great, thank you so much. Now, back to the videos. So much for diplomacy. What started as a simple handshake photo op turned into the Oval Office equivalent of a Jerry Springer episode, just with more nuclear weapons and fewer chair throws. The meeting between President Trump and Ukrainian President Zelenskyy began with all the usual diplomatic niceties. Two world leaders smiling for the cameras, exchanging pleasantries for about half an hour, while aides nodded approvingly. The minerals deal sitting ready to sign should have been the headline, a straightforward agreement that would have been just another day in international relations. Instead, those fancy White House salads ended up packed away, untouched, like awkward leftovers after a family fight at Thanksgiving. For those first 30 minutes, things actually looked promising. Trump and Zelenskyy were speaking politely, even with admiration for each other. According to staffers who were present, the conversation flowed, handshakes were firm, and smiles seemed genuine. Trump even complimented Ukraine's resilience, though he couldn't help mentioning how much money America had spent supporting them. Classic Trump. But then came the turning point that transformed a standard diplomatic meeting into an international incident. When discussion turned to potential peace negotiations, Zelenskyy expressed reasonable doubts about trusting Putin's promises. You know, the guy who invaded his country. That's when VP J.D. Vance decided to play bad cop, jumping in with all the subtlety of a MAGA hat at a Democratic convention.
Where Ukrainian President Zelenskyy was a guest, and Donald Trump and J.D. Vance started yelling at Zelenskyy with Putin.
Mr. President, with respect, Vance said to Zelenskyy with a tone that contained about as much respect as I have for Brussels sprouts. I think it's disrespectful for you to come to the Oval Office to try to litigate this in front of the American media.
I think it was not good.
Do you think your relationship with Donald Trump, President Trump, after today, can be salvaged?
But you will feel it in the future. God bless.
You don't know that.
God bless. God bless. You will not have a war.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
Ouch. Talk about shutting down a conversation faster than Twitter fact-checking Trump's election claims. The truly bizarre part? Trump seemed to absolutely love the drama unfolding. While aides shifted uncomfortably, our reality TV star turned president was practically rubbing his hands together with glee, declaring, "I think it's good for the American people to see what's going on." Later, as tensions escalated, he literally told staffers, "This is going to be great television," because nothing says successful diplomacy like thinking about Nielsen ratings while a war-torn country's leader sits across from you. The meeting quickly devolved into what one aide described as a gratitude lesson.
Manpower problems. You should be thanking the president for trying to bring an end to this conflict.
Have you ever been to Ukraine that you say what problems we have?
Trump repeatedly demanded that Zelenskyy show more thankfulness for American support, with Vance actually saying, and I'm not making this up, again, just say thank you. Can you imagine? Like Zelenskyy was a 5-year-old being forced to thank grandma for an ugly sweater, not the leader of a sovereign nation fighting for survival.
Far more than a lot of people said they should have.
Have you said thank you once? this
A lot
entire
of
meeting?
times.
No, in this
Even
entire meeting, have
today,
you said thank
even
you?
The real jaw-dropping moment came when Trump went full playground bully, actually pointing his finger at Zelenskyy while declaring, "You're not in a good position. You don't have the cards right now." Nothing says America stands with its allies, quite like telling them they're losers who should know their place. Trump's diplomatic style has all the nuance of a monster truck rally.
European leaders on Sunday after he clashed with President Trump and Vice President JD Vance in an extraordinary shouting match on a visit to the Oval Office.
According to White House officials, who apparently can read body language better than they can read the room, Zelensky's posture showed increasing hostility as the meeting progressed. Well, duh. Who wouldn't get a little testy after being lectured about gratitude while your country is being invaded?
3, and of not being grateful for the support of the US. President Zelenskyy made it clear there should be no compromises with President Putin.
This perceived attitude only made Trump angrier, creating a diplomatic death spiral. Then came the explosion that will likely be replayed on news channels for years to come. Trump, the man with access to nuclear codes, completely lost it and shouted at Zelenskyy, "You're gambling with World War III, and what you're doing is very disrespectful to this country."
With World War III. You're gambling with World War III. And what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country.
The irony of accusing someone else of being disrespectful while screaming in their face apparently escaped our former commander-in-chief. The fallout was immediate and predictable. Zelenskyy, dignity somehow intact, left without signing the minerals deal that was supposed to be the whole point of this meeting. Trump, never one to miss a chance to double down, later posted online that Zelenskyy is not ready for peace and could come back when he is ready.
We are ready for peace, but we have to be in strong position. What does it mean? Just to know that our army is strong?
Zelenskyy stood up for himself, for his country, for democracies around the world, and powerfully pushed back at Donald Trump.
As if he were sending a misbehaving customer out of Trump Tower rather than potentially altering the course of a major European conflict. The international fallout from this diplomatic disaster was swift and deeply divided. While American diplomacy took a massive hit, Moscow was practically throwing a party. Former Russian President Medvedev couldn't contain his glee, calling Zelenskyy an insolent pig who got a proper slap down in the Oval Office. Nothing says world peace like celebrating verbal abuse. Meanwhile, European leaders quickly circled the wagons around Zelenskyy. EU Commission President von der Leyen praised his dignity and reminded everyone that Ukraine is never alone. Except, apparently in the Oval Office with Grumpy Trumpy.
I'm not telling you.
Because you're in no position to dictate that.
That's
Remember
exactly what
this.
you're doing.
You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel.
That's why we speak about the future negotiations. It will be difficult without your support, but we can't lose.
Italian Prime Minister Meloni desperately called for an immediate summit between the US and European allies, warning that every division of the West makes us all weaker. The metaphor couldn't be clearer. Those untouched lunch plates left behind symbolize perfectly what happened to the US-Ukraine relationship, abandoned mid-meal with Putin waiting to clean up the leftovers.